from all the note-taking methods out there, how can you choose one that really works for you? Because everyone who is serious about note-taking have tried other people's methods. Either a way of organizing your folders, or a structure for your tags, or a specific method to process and read your source, or whatever else it may be. But although all those methods work, we still feel like there is something missing. And that's a challenge caused by what I call borrowing someone else's gloves. And this is the topic for this video. So let's get started. The video you're about to watch is part of a free mini course on how to create a knowledge system that works for you without having to abandon your favorite app or end up with an impossible to maintain structure. So if you want to have access to the full course, just check the description of this video. In this video, we will cover the second problem you may face when trying to create a system that works for you. And that's what I name borrowing someone's clothes. And that's the problem that you may face when you're in your journey towards creating your own system, and then someone appears and says, wow, I have a method that works for me, work it for others, it will definitely work for you. Okay? And more often than not, it doesn't. Not because it's not a good method, but because it doesn't work for your specific case. It doesn't match your mindset to what you're trying to do or the context in which you're trying to do things. Okay? So as we say, a glove that fits someone else perfectly may not fit you, okay? It may be a bit large, the texture may be different, or whatever it may be, okay? Because let's go back then to the system pyramid again, okay? The tools implement methods, but the methods put in practice specific ways of thinking, okay? Specific thinking process, or they require certain beliefs for them to work. So when someone asks us, okay, it's not about the tool, let me show you how to do it, this is the way to do it, they're asking us to go and use a specific mindset that may not be the one that you are looking for, okay? Let me give an example. These are very classical methods, which is the classical highlighting, okay? So some people say, well, highlight your source, what parts were important, which parts trigger some thoughts on you. They don't ask you write down your thoughts. They say, try to highlight things that trigger thoughts on you. And usually, even with multiple colors, maybe this is an example, maybe this is a definition, maybe this is a shortcut of a method, for example. And then based on that, let's just distill that information to a database. Okay, this is actually a very nice one. I really love this. I always wanted to have a database like this. Like, wow, this looks so cool. But then there are problems with that. This is very good for very specific circumstances. You create a systematic literature review. You already know in advance what are the dimensions that you want to analyze in all those sources. Then you are just categorizing each source under each dimensions, and sometimes there are a few key points here, and that are the actual notes, okay? So you can create that, and depending on what you want in your systematic review, we just say, these are the sources that deal with this dimension. These are the sources that deal with this other dimension. If you're doing that, this will work up to a point. If you're not trying to do a systematic literature review on a specific topic that you already know all the dimensions, you suffer. Okay? So this here is not a good way of maintaining our notes about our source, because it doesn't capture our thoughts, it doesn't capture why something called our attention. There is no relation to specific projects that we could have or we have, or different ideas. It doesn't show how our ideas connect, the ideas that we're extracting from the source. This is a very limited way of dealing with source, okay? And it doesn't matter if it's in a spreadsheet, or if it's a Notion database, or if it's a Heptabase tag, or it's a ton of super tag. It's the same method in different apps. And as you saw, the app is not the thing, okay? The app may make it easier if that's what it wants to do, but it's about here the method. It's exactly the same method, okay? So the method is good for a specific situation, may not work in many other situations. Maybe you are in another discipline. Maybe you want to read source for a different purpose, because it's interesting, because it's relevant, because I want to apply to a project. What's the reason why you are dealing with the source, okay? So the method itself may work very well for someone, may look beautiful. It's very beautiful. but may not work for you in your specific situation. And then what happens, how we notice when it's too late already, you have created the whole thing, applied the whole method, organized everything. At the writing time, you want to write a report from that. Then you spend like 4 hours painfully rewriting a single paragraph. You just feel overwhelmed with the amount of information, don't know what to do with all that, and you go like that, okay? So there are two cases where it happens why a method doesn't work for us. The first one is that it worked for them in spite of their system. It's not that the method is good, it's not that the system is good, but it worked for them even when the system was playing against them, okay? Because in reality, most of the time, we don't really need a system, okay? We want a system to make things easier, but you don't need a system to think and write, okay? 300 years ago, people were thinking and writing. They didn't have any digital tools. They have pen and paper when they have pen and paper, and they just have piles of notes. They'll be like going through the notes. They'll take like sometimes 20 years to write a very good book, but they will write the book, okay? There's no internet even to give them information or anything. So they worked even when their system, which was like basically no system, sometimes, it still worked for them, okay? They could still think and write. You can still think and write without having built a system. But we build a system to make it easier. So sometimes people say, my system working for me, working for them. Sometimes it worked in spite of the system, okay? But let's suppose you got a good method, okay? And it works, it's actually good, it makes things easier, makes things flow easier. It may not work because it doesn't follow your intended mindset, the way how you want your system to work, the way your thinking is flowing, okay? And that may be the reason why it doesn't work. So if you're ever in the situation, we are going on our way and someone say, oh, I have a new method, it's very cool, do you want to hear? I said, no, I don't hear about people's methods anymore. I say, there's no need for that. Instead, I invite you to think differently. It's like, is there any new mindset that I could learn from them? Any new way of thinking that I haven't considered before that maybe will make things easier for me? So then we can decide, okay, rather than just borrow someone's method as is and think, well, is there a situation here where this method will make my life easier? Then we can go through that, okay? So how can we solve the borrow your someone else's gloves problem or challenge that may appear? Ensure that your system works for your mindset. Borrow when it suits. So have you ever tried borrowing someone else's gloves? And how did it feel 3 or more months down the line when the initial excitement has passed? So let us know in the comments so you can learn a little bit more about your journey. And in the next video, we will talk about the last challenge into our journey towards a system that works for you. And that's the challenge that everyone who has been a long time in this journey will most certainly face. So if you want to have direct access, just go in the description of this video to find our free mini course. Otherwise, see you in the next video.